Right now, the simple, innocent routine of walking your dog down a sun-baked sidewalk is actively triggering a silent, irreversible cellular meltdown inside their vital organs before they even show a single sign of distress. Look out your window. The news channels are flooded with emergency alerts. Meteorologists are sounding the alarm on unprecedented, record-shattering El Niño climate patterns that are blanketing the globe in blistering, suffocating heat waves. We run inside. We crank up the air conditioning. We grab a cold glass of water and complain about the intense humidity index. But while we adapt, our dogs are silently taking the absolute, most brutal brunt of this extreme planetary weather shift. What feels like a standard, slightly warm afternoon to you is, in reality, a lethal minefield for your best friend. You clip on the leash. You step out onto the pavement for a routine 20-minute stroll. You think everything is perfectly fine. But beneath the surface, a ticking biological clock has already started. 20 minutes later, your dog's tongue is hanging out far past their teeth, violently curling upward at the edges like a grotesque spoon. Their breathing changes from a normal pant into a heavy, raspy, mechanical roar that sounds like a failing engine. They stop dead in their tracks. Their back legs buckle, and right there, on the grass, they collapse into unconsciousness. In my veterinary clinic, these peak summer months are not a season of fun. They are an absolute, living nightmare. Every single week, devastated, crying pet parents rush through my doors, carrying the limp, overheated bodies of their beloved dogs. And the most heartbreaking, tragic part of every single case I treat, the owners had absolutely no idea their dog was in mortal danger until it was already too late. They tell me the exact same story. Katja, it was just a normal walk. Katja, it didn't even feel that hot outside. They are entirely right from a human perspective. But human perspective is exactly what is killing our dogs. With this current El Niño weather system baking our asphalt and driving atmospheric humidity to record-breaking highs, a breezy, seemingly pleasant 85-degree day to a human feels like a suffocating, inescapable 100-plus degree oven to a canine body. If you do not recognize the silent, invisible physiological signs of canine heat exhaustion, a simple trip around the neighborhood block will transform into a fatal systemic tragedy in less than 15 minutes. My name is Katja Berger. I am a veterinary specialist, and I have spent years on the front lines of animal emergency medicine. I know this reality sounds utterly terrifying, especially with the extreme weather reports flashing across your screens right now. But my goal today is not to freeze you with fear. My goal is to completely arm you with the exact biological hacks, clinical insights, and preventative strategies needed to protect your dog's life during the most dangerous summer in recorded history. This is your ultimate summer survival masterclass. Over the course of this deep dive breakdown, I am going to reveal a brilliant 60-second physiological hack you can perform right at your front door that will actively drop your dog's core internal temperature by up to 10 degrees before they even take a single step into the summer heat. We are also going to completely shatter 3 massive, dangerously pervasive summer myths that are actively taught online, including the exact scientific reasons why offering your overheated dog a bowl of ice water or throwing a wet towel over their back are actually the precise triggers that can send their cardiovascular system into fatal, irreversible shock. To truly protect them, we must first expose the hidden mechanics of what happens inside a canine body when the environment turns hostile. We cannot apply human logic to a creature with a completely foreign thermoregulatory system. We assume they feel what we feel. They don't. We assume their bodies cool down the way our bodies cool down. They absolutely cannot. This fundamental misunderstanding is the exact point where innocent mistakes turn deadly. Let's strip away the myths, look directly at the clinical science, and explore the highly fragile, hidden biology of canine heat. To truly understand why the summer heat is a silent killer, we have to look directly at the hidden biological war happening inside your dog's body the moment they step onto hot pavement. As humans, we take our cooling system for granted. When your internal temperature rises, millions of acrine sweat glands across your skin activate, releasing moisture. The air evaporates that sweat, instantly cooling the blood vessels beneath your skin and dropping your core temperature. It is a highly efficient, full-body cooling radiator, but dogs are completely locked out of this mechanism. A dog's body is covered in a dense, insulating coat of fur, and they possess zero sweat glands on their torso, back, or neck. Instead, they have a highly restricted number of localized sweat glands, known as merocrine glands, which are tucked exclusively inside the tiny surface area of their paw pads. Think about the physics of that for a second. A 90-pound golden retriever is attempting to cool its entire body mass through 4 tiny patches of skin on the bottom of its feet. It is biologically impossible because their paws offer almost zero thermal relief. 99% of a dog's survival during a heat wave relies entirely on a single mechanical process: panting. When a dog pants, they are not just breathing fast. They are utilizing a sophisticated evaporative cooling loop. They draw air rapidly over the moist mucous membranes of their tongue, mouth, and upper respiratory tract. This rapid airflow evaporates the moisture on these tissues, absorbing heat directly from the surrounding blood vessels and expelling that hot air back out into the environment. But here is where the devastating biological breakdown occurs during an El Niño summer. This cooling only works if the air the dog is breathing in is significantly cooler than their internal body temperature. The moment the ambient outdoor temperature climbs above 85 degrees, or the relative humidity spikes past 70%, the system fundamentally stalls. If the air outside is thick with humidity, the moisture on the dog's tongue cannot evaporate. If the air is burning hot, the dog is literally inhaling an environmental furnace into their lungs with every single breath. Their internal air conditioner is completely broken. When this breakdown occurs, the dog's core body temperature begins to skyrocket out of control. A dog's normal, healthy internal temperature sits between 101 and 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit. The moment that number creeps up to 105 degrees, the body enters a state of severe heat exhaustion. But if it hits 107 to 109 degrees, you enter the realm of true medical catastrophe. At 109 degrees, a process called thermal denaturation begins. This means the structural proteins that hold your dog's cellular walls together literally begin to cook, unravel, and liquefy. Inside the bloodstream, the lining of the blood vessels becomes severely damaged. The blood begins to microclot throughout the entire vascular tree, a lethal condition known as disseminated intravascular coagulation, or DIC. As these microscopic clots form, they completely cut off the oxygen supply to the major organs. The brain begins to swell, triggering massive neurological misfires and seizures. The delicate lining of the gastrointestinal tract begins to slough off, leading to internal bleeding. The kidneys and liver completely shut down as their cellular architecture collapses under the sheer thermal load. The most terrifying aspect of this physiological meltdown is that it occurs in total silence. In my clinic, I have seen dogs go from perfectly normal behavior to complete, irreversible multi-organ failure in less than 20 minutes. The owner notices their dog slowing down slightly on the trail, assumes they are just getting a bit lazy, and pushes them for just 5 more minutes to get back to the car. Those 5 minutes are the exact boundary between life and death. Consider the raw data from veterinary emergency rooms worldwide. When a dog presents with full-blown heat stroke, where collapse and seizures have already manifested, the mortality rate sits at a staggering 50%. Even with aggressive round-the-clock intensive care, cooling blankets, intravenous plasma transfusions, and oxygen therapy, every second dog will not make it out of the clinic alive. And for the survivors, the road ahead is plagued by permanent, severe neurological deficits and chronic kidney disease caused by the intense thermal scarring of their tissues. Let me take you inside a real case that walked through my doors last July. An owner brought in a 3-year-old boxer named Rocky. It was a typical July afternoon, around 88 degrees out with moderate humidity. The owner had taken Rocky to a local dog park for a quick game of fetch. Rocky was high energy, obsessed with his tennis ball, and kept running despite the heat. The owner noticed Rocky was panting heavily, so they walked him back to the car. During the 5-minute drive home, Rocky became completely unresponsive in the back seats. When they carried Rocky into my emergency room, his core temperature was literally off the scale of our clinical thermometers, registering at a lethal 110.2 degrees. His gums were completely purple. He was actively entering a state of hypovolemic shock, meaning his blood volume had dropped drastically because his body had pushed all its fluid to the skin surface in a desperate, failed attempt to radiate heat. We instantly initiated an emergency cooling protocol, wrapping his extremities in cool water, running chilled intravenous fluids directly into his veins, and placing him on a continuous oxygen line. We managed to save Rocky's life, but the cost was immense. He spent 5 days in the intensive care unit fighting acute renal failure. His kidneys were so severely damaged by the heat that they could no longer filter toxins from his blood, requiring intensive drug therapies to restart. This entire near-fatal event happened not because the owner didn't care, but because they simply did not understand that a dog's drive to please their human will completely override their own basic survival instincts. Rocky didn't stop running because his brain was telling him to keep chasing that ball, even as his internal organs were actively cooking. This is the hidden trap every pet owner must understand. You cannot wait for your dog to tell you they are too hot. By the time they show you, the damage is already done. Now let's peel back the layers on why the most common, well-intentioned advice you find on internet forums and pet store aisles is not just ineffective. It is actively killing dogs during heat waves. When an owner realizes their dog is overheating, panic sets in, and they immediately reach for what seems logically sound from a human perspective. But when you apply human logic to canine physiology, you create a fatal disconnect. Let's dissect the single most pervasive mistake made by 99% of pet parents: the wet towel trap. You are at a park or in your backyard, and you notice your dog is panting with terrifying speed. You run inside, soak a thick cotton towel under freezing cold tap water, and drape it entirely over the dog's neck and back like a protective cooling cape. You think you have just saved the day. In reality, you have just accelerated their internal cooking process. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the basic physics of thermodynamics and thermal radiation. A dog's body heat naturally rises off their skin and dissipates out through the top coat into the surrounding air. The moment you place a heavy, wet cotton blanket across their back, you form an impermeable physical barrier. For the first 60 seconds, the cool water feels refreshing to the touch. But immediately after, the immense thermal energy radiating out of the dog's body transfers into the trapped moisture of the towel. Because the towel is heavy and wet, it blocks all natural air circulation. The dog's body heat rapidly warms the water trapped within the fabric fibers, raising its temperature to match the dog's internal core. Within 3 minutes, that cool towel transforms into a boiling, suffocating steam blanket. It creates a highly localized greenhouse effect directly over the dog's spinal column and major muscle groups, trapping 100% of the metabolic heat within the body. The internal core temperature spikes vertically, pushing a dog that was merely suffering from heat exhaustion directly into full-blown, fatal heat stroke. The next catastrophic error is the frantic administration of ice water. An owner comes home from a walk, sees their dog breathing like a freight train, and fills a large metal bowl with ice, cold water straight from the refrigerator, dumping a handful of ice cubes on top. The dog, driven by pure survival instinct, drops their head and violently chugs the freezing liquid as fast as physically possible. This triggers a cascade of 2 distinct, highly dangerous physiological events. First, let's look at the vascular response. The sudden, intense shock of freezing water hitting the highly sensitive thermal receptors in the dog's esophagus and stomach causes an immediate, massive systemic vasoconstriction. This means the blood vessels throughout the core and gastrointestinal tract violently constrict. When a dog is hot, their body desperately needs the blood vessels to dilate so that heat can be carried to the skin surface and exhaled through the lungs. By forcing the internal vessels to slam shut via cold shock, you trap the superheated blood inside the core organs, preventing the body from radiating its heat away. Second, the mechanical act of frantically gulping down ice-cold water causes the dog to inhale massive quantities of atmospheric air directly into their gastric system. Because their throat muscles are working in overdrive, to pant and drink simultaneously large volumes of air and water mix inside the stomach. This sudden distension, combined with the physiological stress of thermal shock, drastically increases the risk of gastric dilatation volvulus, commonly known as bloat. The air-filled, heavy stomach literally rotates on its axis inside the abdominal cavity, twisting the esophagus and the main blood supplies shut. This is a surgical emergency that can kill a dog in less than an hour. Finally, we must expose the multi-million-dollar industry mistake: the summer shave. Every year as the weather warms up, owners of double-coated breeds, such as Huskies, Golden Retrievers, German Shepherds, Pomeranians, and Border Collies, take their dogs to the groomer and demand a complete buzz cut down to the pink skin. They believe they are doing the animal a massive favor by stripping away their heavy winter coat. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of canine evolutionary biology. Double-coated dogs possess 2 distinct layers of fur that serve a dual purpose. The dense, soft undercoat is what traps body heat during freezing winters. In the spring, this undercoat sheds out naturally in massive clumps. What remains is the long, coarse outer layer known as the guard hairs. These guard hairs are a biological marvel of engineering. They do not trap heat. Instead, they form a reflective physical shield that bounces the sun's harsh ultraviolet radiation away from the body. More importantly, this outer coat acts exactly like the high-grade insulation installed in the walls of a house. It creates a pocket of trapped ambient air that sits directly above the skin. This pocket of air stays significantly cooler, environment than the blistering outside environment, keeping the environmental heat out while allowing the skin to breathe. The moment you run clippers down a double-coated dog's back and expose their naked skin, you completely destroy their house's insulation. The blazing sun now beats directly down onto unprotected, non-pigmented skin, causing severe agonizing solar dermatitis and sunburns. Without the thermal barrier of the guard hairs, the environmental heat penetrates the body instantly. A shaved, double-coated dog will suffer from heat exhaustion up to 20% faster than a dog left with their full, natural coat intact. Furthermore, once that double coat is shaved, the undercoat often grows back faster than the guard hairs, creating a tangled, matted mess that permanently ruins their natural thermoregulatory system for the rest of their life. To reverse this silent threat and confidently navigate these intense El Niño summers, you must implement specific, scientifically sound protocols that work directly with your dog's natural biology. Let's break down the exact, step-by-step action plan to keep your dog completely safe, starting with the 60-second pre-walk vascular hack, instead of trapping heat with wet towels or risking shock with ice water. You will target the exact locations where a dog's blood vessels sit closest to the surface of the skin. 5 minutes before stepping outside, take a clean washcloth and submerge it under cool, room-temperature tap water. Do not use freezing water or ice. Wring out the excess moisture until the cloth is thoroughly damp. First, lift your dog's paws and carefully wipe down all 4 paw pads. Ensure the skin is visibly moist, as this directly primes the Merocrine sweat glands. Next, gently apply the cool, damp cloth directly into both armpits, ensuring you make contact with the thin skin. Hold it there for 15 seconds on each side. Finally, wipe the bare skin of their groin and the inner thighs. Why these specific areas? The armpits and inner thighs house the brachial and femoral arteries. These are massive, high-volume blood vessels positioned just millimeters beneath the surface of thin, hairless skin. By applying cool moisture directly over these arterial pathways, you actively chill the blood as it circulates from the extremities back into the core. When you step outside and the air hits these damp zones, it triggers rapid evaporative cooling. As the water evaporates, it violently draws thermal energy out of the bloodstream, functioning exactly like human sweat. This single action establishes a highly efficient cooling buffer, dropping your dog's perceived internal temperature by up to 10 degrees and buying them critical safety time on their walk. If you are already out and need to utilize a wet towel for cooling, you must completely invert the standard method. Never drape the towel over their back. Instead, lay the damp towel flat on the grass or the floor and command your dog to lie down directly on top of it. A dog's chest and belly possess the thinnest fur and the highest concentration of exposed skin. By pressing their bare belly against the damp fabric, you utilize the process of conduction. The intense metabolic heat transfers directly out of their body into the cooler surface below. Meanwhile, their back, spine, and ribs remain completely open to the air, allowing rising body heat to escape naturally via radiation into the atmosphere. When it comes to hydration, throw away the ice water bowl. When your dog returns from exercise panting heavily, provide them with cool, tepid, or room temperature water. To prevent the dangerous, rapid chugging reflex that induces life-threatening bloat, utilize the portion control method. Do not present them with a full 2-gallon bucket. Fill the bowl with only a half cup of water at a time. Allow them to lap it up, wait 60 seconds for their respiratory rate to steady, and then add another half cup. If you want to use ice safely to cool them down from the inside out, you must completely eliminate the swallowing hazard. Take a single large ice cube and hold it firmly in your hand, allowing your dog to slowly lick it. The mechanical action of licking triggers the production of saliva, which gently cools the oral cavity and the tongue without introducing large, frozen masses into the gastric system. Alternatively, blend low-sodium bone broth with water and freeze it in a shallow silicone mold. These thin, brittle treats shatter instantly upon contact with their teeth, completely mitigating any risk of airway obstruction or frantic gulping. For coat maintenance during a heat wave, banish the clippers entirely. Instead of shaving your double-coated dog, invest in a high-quality undercoat rake and a slicker brush. Dedicate 10 minutes every single evening to an aggressive, systematic deshedding routine. Work the rake gently through the fur, moving from the base of the neck down to the tail. This process pulls out the dead, trapped undercoat fibers that act like heavy winter insulation while leaving the long guard hairs completely intact. By removing the trapped fuzz, you open up internal air channels, allowing the summer breeze to circulate freely against the skin, while the reflective top coat acts as a sun shield. However, if prevention fails and you find yourself facing an emergency where your dog displays the silent red flags, you must execute the emergency clinical protocol immediately. The moment you see the spoon tongue, the dark brick red gums, or the drunken neurological stumble, your 5-minute countdown begins. Step 1. Immediately remove the dog from the heat source. Move them into deep shade or a heavily air-conditioned environment. Step 2. Run a continuous stream of cool, never freezing, water over their abdomen, groin, and paw pads. You can use a garden hose or a shower head, keeping the water flowing continuously to carry the heat away. Do not submerge the dog in an ice bath, as this will shock their heart and cause vascular collapse. Step 3. Place the dog directly in front of a high-powered electric fan or point the air conditioning vents in your vehicle directly at them. The moving air crossing the wet skin will maximize the evaporative cooling loop, driving their core temperature down safely. Step 4. While keeping the cooling process active, immediately transport them to the nearest emergency veterinary facility. Call the clinic while you are en route and state clearly, "I am bringing in a canine heat stroke patient in active distress. My estimated arrival time is 10 minutes. This warning ensures the veterinary team can prime intravenous catheters, prepare chilled saline lines, and set up oxygen hoods before you even cross the threshold. Taking these proactive measures transforms you from a reactive observer into an empowered, highly educated protector of your dog's life. You now possess the exact scientific toolkit required to defeat the extreme El Niño summer and guarantee your best friend's safety. Go look at your dog right now. Pull back their lip and perform that capillary refill test so you know exactly what healthy, vibrant bubblegum pink looks like on their gums today. Drop a comment below telling me your dog's breed and their name. I read every single story, and I am entirely dedicated to keeping this community's pets safe. Click that like button right now to help this vital medical information cut through the internet noise and reach other protective pet parents before the next major heatwave strikes. Hit that subscribe button to ensure you